Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, we start off with watch and clock restoration for one reason, and that reason is that the very best watchmakers have a background in restoration. This was from the March 27, 2014. This is from the Wall Street Journal. It says that you do not have to dig deep into the backgrounds of today's greatest watchmakers to find a common link: restoration. Now, this was an article about Michel Parmigiani. So it was like, oh, I know who he is. There's a picture of F.P. Journe when he was quite young, working in his uncle's restoration shop. So it's like they're all of the ones that we know the best have been involved in restoration. Philippe Dufour, for example, created a workshop that was dedicated to restoration. He worked for different companies. I think did some stuff for Audemars Piguet and some other companies. But what he did when he saved up his money, got a workshop, and dedicated it to restoration. Now, why restoration, and how does that make a good watchmaker? Well, makes a good watchmaker because all of the things that from the past that have been used to make mechanical watches, you can find in restoring them. Roger Smith, who was mentored by George Daniels, he did watch restoration for a London jeweler. Going along, we find Stephen Forsey of Grubel and Forsey. Since 1967, he specialized in antique watch restoration and became the head of the Asprey of London's their prestigious watch restoration department. Peter Speake-Marin, he did watch restoration. Then he put together these beautiful movements from his experience there. Now we get back to Michel Parmigiani. So he was doing watch restoration, clock restoration for the Sandoz family, and they said, "Hey, you're doing really good at this. How would you like to have your own watch company with your name?" I mean, it's really amazing way it's happened. And this is what Parmigiani said about watch restoration. He says, "A rare joy to restore a horological piece, to free it from the ravages of time and of men, is to reinstate it with a temporal truth so essential to our memory." Also, Kari Voutilainen, he did restoration for Parmigiani Major at Art du Temps. He did it for 10 years before he went off and started his own watch company. And of course, he's won, my God, I don't know how many Grand Prix awards. A couple of years ago, Michel Parmigiani won 2. So, here you have this all in common. Now, what difference does this make to watch collectors? Well, if you look at the prices of these guys' watches, we can't afford them for the most part. I mean, for the very best ones, a while back I had did a video on young watchmakers and sort of looking at the Association of Independent Watchmakers, very elite group of independents. And so I even looked at the ones who were on the waiting list, and even their watches were horrendously expensive. So, I mean, because these are handmade watches. Well, earlier I had talked about Rolf Lang. And Rolf Lang he had one of the most interesting restorations. He was living in Dresden. He was born in Dresden right after World War II. Well, Dresden had been bombed cross-eyed near the end of the war. In 1945, first the British came in and bombed it at night with high explosives and incendiaries, and then the Americans came in the morning, did the same thing. 25,000 people were killed in this raid. And I mean, when you think that at least for Americans in the war in Vietnam, that represents half of all American losses over a period of 10 years. Well, this happened, 25,000 people is a lot of people. So anyway, there's what Rolf did when he wanted to be a watchmaker, because he came from a family of watchmakers, and this was under the old Stalinist regime, and they said, no, you can't become a watchmaker because that wouldn't be fair. And somehow he sort of went through and was doing a number of things with mechanical devices. And they said, look, we need someone to put stuff back together again. Well, not only did he do restoration, I mean, he did restoration of this whole history of German watchmaking, these antiques and so forth that have been bombed. Now, putting back together a clock that's been in a family or something and some parts are missing, that's one thing. But putting back together this whole world of mechanical antique watchworks of different kinds was incredible. And so this was something I thought, my God, this guy's really good. Rolf he did the prototype for a watch, the only watch that H. Moser won the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie for their perpetual calendar. He did the prototyping on that. And then he was involved to team. I think we talked about this before. This guy is really very good, but nobody knows about him. So I thought, well, and so this was something. So how do you get to be known? Now, let me shift gears here for a second. This is what Breitling has, is that they have these different squads. This is their Breitling Cinema Squad. And there are 3 movie stars, all of whom I like. I really do. Brad Pitt, Adam Driver, and Charlize Theron. Now, but what do they know about watches? Now, I know Brad Pitt paid $300,000 for a watch, but that means you got $300,000 to blow on a watch. And the other ones, I mean, they're great actors. I mean, I like them. I don't know if great would be the right term, but they do well. So here you have, why would I listen to them for buying a watch? Well, one of the things that I ran across that was really sort of interesting, back in December of 2018, there was a video I saw. They were talking about this group of collectors called Red Bar. They were talking about the London one. I was invited once to the one in New York. I didn't go just because I couldn't. Nothing against it. But what Christine Hutter did, and Christine is the head of the CEO of Moritz Grossmann. She said, I'm going to give these guys a watch to play around with. And so I don't know how many she did, but there were certain individuals who got a watch, a Moritz Grossmann watch, to play with. And as watch collectors, we wear them and seriously consider them. Playing with them is perhaps not the right term. So I had been on a river cruise from Budapest up to Nuremberg, and I'd done a little video about that. And so I went to visit Rolf Lang, and I thought, well, I said, this is what Christine Hutter did, and I think it's a good idea. And I said, I know a bunch of guys who are watch collectors, and these are people that I've done collection reviews, and they've been active in the different areas of social media where we talk about watches. So what I did, I thought, well, heck, I'll just we'll get us and we'll talk about a watch. Except instead of giving it to one person, we'll take one watch and send it around to 12 people. Each one of the people will have it for a month and just wear it and talk about it on social media like we always talk about watches. Nothing unusual, nothing special. It's not a review. It wasn't to nitpick. It wasn't to gush over a watch, just to wear a watch of this caliber. Now, these are handmade watches, and this is what's important. They're not mass produced. They're one person does the whole thing, all right, in his shop. Now, Rolf told me is that when he gets busy, there are a number of other people who will watchmakers in the area, younger ones who'll come in and work with him. But for the most part, everything he does he's got right there in this little place. I mean, and this goes from like he showed me a jagged piece of metal. This is what you start with, and the next thing you know, it's part of a movement. All right, so I'm going to have to get some people. Now, a couple things that I wanted to do. First of all, it's going to keep it in the United States for a number of reasons, but the primary one, well, there were two primary ones. One, Rolf wanted to know about, the market in the United States, and it's a great big one, obviously. That's one thing. But to me, more importantly, going through customs was very, very difficult. It's just difficult. That's the only thing I can say about it. Sometimes things will go right through, other times they won't. Okay, we're going to have one watch, and we're going to send it around. Okay, so this is what I set up. I set up a thing. I start with me in Connecticut, and go to Oklahoma, down Louisiana, out to California, back to Ohio, down to North Carolina, down to Florida, then back up to New York. One guy has places in New York and Puerto Rico, so it'll probably go to New York, and also there in New Jersey, and then at the end, we return it to me, and we sort of were talking about meeting in Greenwich at the Concours d'Elegance, which is really a cool car show. So anyway, the idea is that here we have collectors who can talk about a watch. By the way, too, I'm wearing it right now. This is it's a cool watch. It's a good size. It's 44 millimeters, and it's got the a Rolf Lang buckle on it and so forth. And so I'm thinking, well, one of the things that I've been doing, I've been taking the thing off a lot, and looking at the back. I mean, here you got this beautiful movement, and I like keep taking it off. So I realize I'm sort of banging up the strap doing that. So I'm thinking, well, I'll get a deployant strap, because I figure out if I'm interested in looking at the thing all the time. Most guys who collect watches, at least of this caliber, they really want to look at one of the most important parts, one of the most fun parts is this handmade movement that goes with it. Okay, well, listen, this is the plan. Initially, there was when I was asking around, some people were a little nervous about it. I can understand that, and sort of took a pass on it. Others would like to do it, and I wish I had more than 11. I'm the 12th one on here, so I didn't. There were a lot of people who are really experts that I know, but they're in the business. I didn't want to have anybody in the watch business. This is just strictly collectors. Some guys are. They do a lot of trading to the point of that pretty much, and they think a lot about the business. And this was just for looking at it and having fun with it and so forth. Anyway, that was my idea, and it's something that I think that anybody could do. If some watch companies say, hey, I know a bunch of guys, and we are women, a bunch of gals. Hey, you want to get some women into the market, you ought to give it to women. Don't give it to guys. And they're right. So this is something I think, now there's nothing against celebrities, and people pay attention to celebrities more than, certainly more than people like me. But on the other hand, watch collectors, we need to have some kind of communication saying, hey, this is something that we can live with. Now, like I said, this isn't a review so much as it's just an experience. An experience. I mean, a $14,000 watch is that was sort of the entry level on this. That's, we can't afford that. The best part, though, this is one of the few times when the FedEx man comes that people can, their wife says, okay, what's in it? You can say, there's a watch, and without getting in trouble. That's another thing that's sort of fun with it. But like I said, anyone could do this. It didn't, any group of collectors and saying, hey, let's take a look at this watch. This watch, I think, is especially important because it's handmade. And not all of us get to have a handmade watch. And so it's a lot of fun to have. And like I said, I keep taking it off, so I got to be careful. I'm going to have to get that Napoleon strap for it so I can pop it off and look at it. Like your opinion, what you think of this idea as opposed to a celebrity's, and just sort of your general thoughts on it. As always, it's an invitation to subscribe if you'd like. And until Sunday, when we have our watch collection review, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.